Someone asks Claude a question. Claude answers. They read the answer. It's fine. It's not what they wanted, but it's fine. They thank Claude and close the tab. That's the conversation. 5 minutes earlier, they had a real question. 5 minutes later, they have a mediocre answer. Somewhere in between, a conversation could have happened that produced something genuinely useful. It didn't because they didn't know that's what they were leaving on the table. Most how to prompt Claude content teaches you what to say. This one teaches you how to be in the conversation. The difference is bigger than it sounds. Single prompt thinking caps your ceiling at whatever Claude produces in one turn. Conversational thinking lets you steer Claude towards something neither of you could have written alone. 5 ways to riff with Claude. That's the episode. 5 ways to riff with Claude. Third in the cues format on this channel. The first taught you that Claude reads English, not commands. The second taught you the 5 cues to stop Claude inventing things. This one teaches the posture you hold across a whole conversation, not the moves you bolt onto a single prompt. Both matter, they compound. A short paragraph on why this is worth its own episode, because it could sound like a rerun. The cues episodes taught you discrete instructions. Cite as you go, step back, refuse if unsure. Each one is a single move you append to a single prompt. This is different. This is what happens after that prompt. The thing Claude sent back is a draft. What you do next is the work. Most people don't do that work because they don't realize there's work to be done. They take Claude's first answer and either use it or scrap it. They never enter the second mode, the one where the answer gets shaped by you and Claude together. Riffing is that second mode. It has 5 moves. Once you can see them, you'll use them without thinking. Move 1. Treat Claude as a thinking partner, not a task executor. The default way to use Claude is to give it a final ask and receive an answer. Write me a strategy for X. Summarize this. Edit this. You hand over the task, Claude completes it. The riffing way is to hand Claude the question you're actually thinking about, with the explicit understanding that the first answer is a draft you're going to react to. Not, write me a strategy for X. Instead, I'm trying to think through X. Here's where I am. What am I missing? The output shape is entirely different. The first version asks Claude to produce. The second asks Claude to think. When you ask Claude to think, the answer comes back with its reasoning visible, which means you can disagree with the reasoning, which means the conversation can go somewhere. When you ask Claude to produce, the answer comes back finished, which means your only options are use or scrap. The conversation is the unit of work. The prompt is just the opening move. Move 2. Say no, but instead of no. When Claude proposes something that isn't quite right, the default move is to scrap the answer and re-prompt. This is rarely the best move. It throws away everything Claude was doing well to fix the small bit that wasn't. The better move is to name what's wrong, name what you want instead, and let Claude reshape. The work isn't replaced, it's redirected. Some examples that work. This is too neat. Give me the messier version. You went straight to recommendation. Stay in the diagnosis longer. The structure is right. The tone is wrong. You're being too agreeable. Push back on the parts you actually disagree with. What you're really doing is treating Claude's first answer as raw material. The shape is there. The substance is there. The angle is wrong. You move the angle, not the whole thing. 3 rounds of move the angle gets you somewhere a single perfect prompt never would have. Move 3, the /BTW move. This one is mine, in the sense that I had to name it before I could see it. The /BTW is a parallel insertion mid-conversation. You're working on something with Claude. Something tangential surfaces in your own thinking. You don't want to break the flow to start a new conversation, but you want Claude to fold this thing in. The construction is simple. You type /BTW, then the observation. I'm now wondering if we should consider X. I just noticed Y. By the way, I think the framing should shift. The reason it works is that Claude can hold the original thread and the inserted observation simultaneously. The next turn integrates X into the work without dropping the current line. This is genuinely different from a follow-up question, which redirects the conversation. The /BTW enriches it. The first time you try this, watch what happens. The conversation gets noticeably richer because you're not editing out your own tangential thoughts. The tangents are often where the actual insight is. Move 4. Read Claude's hedges as signal, not noise. When Claude says, "There's a real tension here," when Claude says, "I want to flag something," when Claude says, "The honest version is," when Claude says, "I'm not sure about," those phrases mark the moments where the most valuable conversation is about to happen. Most users skim past hedges as if they were AI safety boilerplate. That's a mistake. The hedge is the place where Claude has noticed something more complicated than the question you asked, and is offering to go there with you. The right next move is unpack that, not, okay, moving on. A hedge is a door. The riffer walks through it. The non-riffer walks past it. 2 viewers of this episode could have the same conversation with Claude tomorrow, and one would get twice the value out of it, because one of them recognized the hedge as the invitation it was. Move 5. Name the meta. Claude responds to direct commentary on its own behavior in a way most users never realize. When the conversation isn't working, you can say so, and Claude adjusts. The adjustment is real, not performative. Some examples. You're doing the thing where you ask 3 questions when one would do. Stop hedging, just take the swing. You're being too agreeable. Push back on the parts you actually disagree with. That answer felt like a default. Try again from the part you actually find interesting. This works because Claude is genuinely able to adjust register, hedge level, depth, tone, length, based on explicit feedback. Most people don't try because they assume Claude is fixed. It isn't. The meta move is what separates intermediate Claude users from advanced ones. Intermediate users get an answer they don't like and reprompt. Advanced users get an answer they don't like, name what's wrong with the way Claude is operating, and watch Claude adjust. The model is the same, the conversation is different. The prompt is the opening move. The conversation is the work. Let me show you what all 5 look like in a single conversation. Real shape, not a hypothetical. You're working on a strategy memo. You open with move 1. I'm trying to think through how we should position the new product launch. Here's where I am. What am I missing? Claude responds with 3 angles. One of them is interesting. 2 are generic. You use move 2. The middle angle is the one. The other 2 are too obvious. Drop them. Give me the middle one with more teeth. Claude does it. While reading the answer, you remember that the launch is timed to a competitor announcement. You use move 3. By Taway, our launch is timed to land the week after a major competitor's keynote. Keep going on the positioning, but factor that in. Claude adjusts. In the next answer, Claude says there's a real tension between timing as a wedge and timing as a reaction. You use move 4. Unpack that. Now you're in the actual conversation. 2 more rounds in, Claude is being a little too even-handed. You use move 5. Stop hedging. You think one of these framings is stronger than the other. Tell me which. Claude tells you. The memo writes itself from there. Total time, 20 minutes. The first 10 minutes of that is the conversation. The last 10 is you writing. 5 moves, 1 conversation. None of them are prompts you could write up front. All of them are responses to what came back. A short, honest disclaimer. Riffing isn't always the right move. Some tasks are not conversations. If you need a clean, factual lookup, ask the question, take the answer. If you need a quick reformat, ask, receive, done. If the work is repetitive and you already know what you want, write a tight prompt and use it. Riffing earns its place when the question is genuinely open, when you don't know exactly what you want, when the answer matters enough to be worth shaping. That's where this practice pays off. For everything else, the Cues episodes have the moves you need. The skill is knowing which mode you're in. Quick task, prompt mode. Real thinking, riffing mode. Get that distinction right, and your Claude time becomes substantially more useful. This is the third episode in the Cues format. If you haven't seen the first two, they teach the foundations this episode is built on. Worth watching in order if you want the full system. If you've watched all three, you have the foundation for the next move, which is a deeper one. The next Cues episode will be about how to know when to start a new conversation versus when to keep going. Knowing when to stop is its own skill, and the riffers who do it well operate at a different level again. For now, take these 5 moves into your next real conversation with Claude. Notice when you use them. Notice when you forget to. The forgetting is fine. The noticing is the practice. Most people end the conversation where the real one was about to start. Don't. That's the episode. See you in the next one.